John Standefer here with some remembrances of Chet Atkins. Man, where to start? I began playing music myself when I was 5 years old. And I started on drums, and then I switched to mandolin for a couple of years, violin for a couple of years, trombone. And I took up guitar when I was right at the tail end of 13. And somewhere in that year, 1963 or 1964, was the first time I ever heard Chet play. And up to that time, I had heard guitar groups, like the Shadows and the Ventures and Santos and Johnny and all those guys. So when I first heard Chet, I wasn't really that impressed. I thought, well, pretty nice sounding little group. Had no idea that he was doing all of that stuff himself. Then it was probably several months later, I came home and my mom was watching Mike Douglas on black and white TV, one of the afternoon programs at that time. And he, as I walked in, said, "Here's Mr. Guitar, Chet Atkins." And Chet came out and played. And I had the same opinion that I had before. It was a nice little group. But, of course, he was the only one sitting there. But I know how they do these things on TV. They overdub the recording, and he's sitting out there miming the thing, But then, after a while, the camera moved in on him. And I could see that all that sound that I was hearing was coming from that one guitar. And man, something inside of me snapped right then, and I became a finger picker that day. I went out and ordered myself some Chet Atkins albums from the dry goods store in the little town where we lived. And I would put those things on my record player, and I would lay down in my bed, and I would listen to side A. And every song at the end of it, I would say, "It's impossible. I mean, there's no way that can be done." And finally, after a long time of that, I finally came across one tune that I thought I might be able to figure out. And so I started working on it, and I worked, and gosh, I don't know, about 150 hours later, I came up with what I thought was the Chet Atkins arrangement of Camptown Races from the Stephen Foster medley. And I played it for quite a little while, and everybody just was marveled at the idea that a kid my age could play that stuff and without any instruction or help. I didn't even know he used a thumb pick in the beginning or that he grew his fingernails or anything. But I got that one going. And by the way, later on when I got a better record player, I discovered that my phonograph had been turning at about 35 RPM, and I'd learned the song in the wrong key. I learned it in A, and it was actually in G, and then I finally figured out some more of the licks, and the more I listened, the more I found that I didn't even have the right tuning. And so if there's any possible way that you could learn a song any more difficult than that, I don't know what it would be. But anyway, I finally started on the road to figuring out Chet at that time. And then I did have a chance to write little letters, and I'd send little 3-inch reel tapes to him in Nashville. And he actually replied to 2 or 3 letters and everything. And when I got to see him later on in Seattle, I think I was maybe 17 the first time I saw him, I was able to find him backstage, and he recognized who I was and invited me into the dressing room. And this was before the concert, and he had me tune his guitars, if you can believe it. He had his Del Vecchio and his Country Gentleman that got stolen later, and he was playing a little Takamine classical guitar, and he had a Ramirez. And the Ramirez, he was practicing in front of the mirror working on, and from what I understand, he did that a lot. He'd practice on a real stiff guitar like that. And then when he would go out on stage to play, he had the Takamine set up with a really low action and all that, and it was made it easier for him to play when he went out to perform live. Anyway, so he invited me, backstage afterwards and said maybe we'd pick a tune, but then when that time rolled around, heck, 100 other people were in there trying to get autographs and everything like that, so that never turned out. But anyway, we did communicate a few other times through history, and really enjoyed the little snippets that I got with him. But, he did so many things, and I worked so hard on those things that I didn't think I would ever get to where I could play half the stuff he did, and I never did. I got to where I could play a good amount of it, and somewhere along there, I got interested in jazz and bossa nova music and a lot of other things, and I was too creative to play pat arrangements from somebody else all the time. So I was constantly kind of redoing songs and adding my own things and experimenting with chords and timing and all kinds of stuff, to where I guess I've developed my own style from what people tell me. But it's really, the whole thing is based on Chet. And, considering that that's been like 56 years ago, and he is still the number one man as far as I'm concerned. You just can't beat Chet. And then, of course, all of his sidekicks like Jerry Reed and Lenny Breau and John Knowles and the rest, Guy Van Duzer, all those folks. They're just tops. And the neat thing about it is I've actually got to meet and play with and become friends with a lot of those folks since then. So anyway, it's led me down a whole life path of guitar playing. And although it's never made a real significant living for me, it's provided just joy after joy figuring out things. Guitar is just a continual learning project. You're always a student. You never outgrow it. And it's always good, whether you're a beginner or highly experienced. The guitar is the best thing that ever happened to me. And Chet, of course, was certainly the one that it revolved around.